Don't judge her just yet. She bought his coffee, unaware he was a billionaire searching for a bride. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. The rain didn't just fall that morning, it attacked the pavement in steady, merciless sheets, as if trying to wash the sleepy town away. The streets were quiet. The sky hung heavy with gray, and the windows of the corner café fogged with each breath of warmth from inside. Lena wiped the counter in slow, practiced circles, half listening to the hiss of the espresso machine behind her. It was her third double shift this week. Her eyes carried the weight of someone who hadn't rested properly in days, but she smiled anyway, because smiles were part of the uniform, even when your life was falling apart. A bell jingled. Not the usual kind of customer. He stood just inside the doorway, dripping water onto the tiled floor. His coat clung to his frame, tattered and years past its prime. His shoes, one slightly torn at the toe, squished with each hesitant step. But it wasn't his appearance that made the room fall silent. It was his presence, like a ghost returning to familiar ground. Lena noticed the stares. Customers sipped their drinks more carefully, murmuring into mugs like they didn't want to be caught looking. One man whispered something to his wife. A teenager snickered, nudging his friend. But Lena walked forward with the same quiet grace she gave everyone. He stood at the counter, fumbling through his coat pocket, laying out coins with trembling fingers. Pennies, nickels, 2 dimes. 68 cents. One small coffee, please, he said, voice dry as dust. Lena glanced at the register. You're a little short, she said gently. He looked up, bracing for rejection. But she smiled. A small, tired smile. The kind that cost nothing but meant everything. It's on me, she added, sliding a cup toward the brewer. He blinked, as if unsure he'd heard correctly. Then, slowly, he nodded. She added a muffin to the side. He didn't ask for it. She didn't explain. He sat alone at the corner table by the window. He didn't pull out a phone, didn't look around nervously like some do when alone. He just sat, hands wrapped around the warmth of the cup, steam curling past his lined face. Watching. Not the weather. Not the muffin. Her. There was something in his eyes, sharp, alert. Not desperate. Not broken. Lena caught his gaze once and quickly looked away. What kind of poor man studies people like that? The moment passed. She returned to wiping tables, taking orders, laughing politely at a customer's bad joke. But every time she glanced back at the man, he was still there. Not drinking. Just present. When he finally stood, his chair scraped softly across the tile. He picked up his coat, paused at the counter, and met her eyes once more. Thank you, he said. Just that. 2 words. Nothing more. But something in the way he said them made her pause mid-motion, napkin still in hand. It wasn't gratitude like you'd expect from someone down on their luck. It was measured, deep, almost amused, like a man who already knew something she didn't. He walked out into the rain without an umbrella, his silhouette swallowed by the storm. Lena turned, busying herself again. She didn't ask his name. He hadn't asked hers. Just another forgotten stranger. Or so she thought. But behind him, the coffee cup remained half full, still warm. And somewhere in that stillness, a quiet tension begins to build. Because kindness always leaves a trace. And not every test comes with warning signs. The sky was clearer that morning, but the cafe felt oddly colder. It had been 3 days since Lena last saw the old man. The frail stranger who left behind a coffee cup and a quiet sense of mystery. She hadn't told anyone about the strange weight in his parting words, or how unsettled she felt long after he vanished into the rain. Still, the world moved on. It always did. Lena tucked a loose strand of hair into her ponytail as she carried a tray to table 4, her sneakers squeaking against the freshly mopped floor. Her back ached, her feet burned, but her smile remained intact. Muscle memory now. She greeted regulars with practiced ease, took orders without hesitation, and cleared tables like clockwork. Then the bell above the door rang. Lena glanced up and froze. He was back. Same coat, same worn shoes. But this time, no rain to blame his condition on. No storm to hide behind. Just a worn man, framed by sunlight and curiosity. He entered slowly, eyes sweeping the cafe with a deliberate calm, as if absorbing every detail. Her heart kicked into a strange rhythm. He moved toward the same table as before, but today, Lena met him halfway. Didn't think we'd see you again, she said, her voice warm but cautious. Coffee. He nodded once, lowering himself into the chair with the ease of someone who already felt entitled to it. She brought the cup without asking for payment this time. "No muffin today?" he asked softly. She smiled. "Only if you're still short." A flicker of something approval, maybe, danced in his eyes. He took a sip. Silence settled. Then, without preamble, he asked, "Why do you work so hard?" Lena blinked. "Excuse me. You're here before the sun and still smiling at closing. Most people don't have that kind of stamina unless they're running from something, or running towards something." The question was direct. Too direct for a customer she'd only met once. But something in the way he asked it, quiet, observant, made her hesitate. She sighed and glanced down at the fraying edge of her apron. "It's not complicated," she said. "My mom's sick. I'm saving up for nursing school. Trying to do both without drowning." He nodded slowly. "You live with her?" "For now. Until we can afford help." "You always help people who don't ask for it?" he asked, tilting his head, watching her again. She gave a small laugh, unsure whether it was a compliment or an accusation. "Not everyone has someone." "I know how that feels." His gaze didn't break. She shifted on her feet. "You always ask questions like this?" "Only when I care about the answers." A loud snort from a nearby table interrupted the moment. A man in a leather jacket leaned back in his chair, loudly whispering to his companion, "They'll let anyone in here these days. He looks like a walking disease." Lena's body stiffened. "Sir," she said sharply, turning toward the man, "if you've got a problem with another customer, take it outside." Leather jacket guy smirked. "Just saying what everyone's thinking." "Well," she snapped, "maybe think quieter." The cafe fell silent. The old man didn't say a word. But when Lena looked back, he was smiling. Not kindly, not softly. It was a restrained curl of the lips, like a man who just confirmed a theory. "Why'd you do that?" he asked as she returned. "I don't like bullies." "No. I meant, why defend someone you barely know?" She paused, considering. "Because people deserve dignity. Rich or poor, doesn't matter." His eyes narrowed slightly. "So you treat everyone the same?" "No," she admitted. "I treat everyone how they treat others. And you haven't treated anyone badly yet." He leaned back, satisfied. "Interesting." Outside the cafe, parked across the street, a sleek black sedan sat idle. Inside, a man in a crisp gray suit tapped a small tablet, watching live footage from a hidden camera behind the cafe's register. The angle showed everything: the kindness, the confrontation, the conversation. He adjusted the volume, listening in. "She passed again," he said into his headset. "Exactly as predicted." "Keep watching," came the reply. "She's not just kind. She's smart." Back inside, the old man finished his coffee. He stood slowly, placing a folded napkin on the table before slipping into his coat. "Thanks again," he said, pausing. "Not just for the coffee." Lena tilted her head. "For what, then?" But he didn't answer. He stepped outside, blinking into the sunlight as if it offended him. His pace was deliberate, each footstep slow but sure. Lena watched him disappear down the sidewalk again. But this time, she felt it. That he wasn't walking away from something. He was walking towards something. And whatever it was, involved her. The napkin remained on the table. Folded once, perfectly. Lena picked it up. Inside was a single line, written in fine penmanship. "Kindness is the rarest wealth." She stared at it for a long time. It had been 8 days. No sign of him. No old man in the corner seat. No soft smile. No heavy questions. Just his absence, silent, unexplained. Lena had waited for the doorbell to chime every morning of that first week, her eyes instinctively drifting to the table by the window. Empty. Always empty. By the third day, she told herself it didn't matter. By the fifth, she found herself checking the lost and found box, half laughing as she said to her coworker, maybe he was a ghost, or a guardian angel doing a one-time shift. But it didn't feel like a joke, because the old man hadn't just been a stranger. He'd been a ripple, a presence that unsettled the routine of her tired days. And now that he was gone, Lena noticed more than just his absence. She noticed how flat everything felt without it. Her life, meanwhile, didn't pause. The rent notice on her fridge was now circled in red. Her mother's cough had worsened again. Lena had tried applying for a scholarship to the local nursing program, pouring her story into every essay field, but the response was a robotic rejection, due to limited funding and high competition, that one stung more than she admitted. She still smiled at customers. Still offered extra napkins, patient nods, the warm laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. But lately, her kindness had begun to feel heavy, like she was pouring from a cup that no one was refilling. Then, one night after a long shift, she stepped into the cold to find something resting under her windshield wiper. An envelope. No name. No logo. Just her car, the note, and the echo of silence. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it, right there in the parking lot. Inside was a single card. Thick paper. Clean ink. You reminded me that kindness still exists. No signature. No return address. Nothing more. Just that one sentence, floating like a whisper in the dark. She looked around instinctively, heart thudding. No movement in the shadows. The alley to her left was empty. The sidewalk was deserted. But still, she felt it. A presence. Someone was watching. Her mind raced. Was it him? The old man. Why now? Why not speak to her directly? She reread the message twice before folding it carefully and slipping it into her jacket pocket. But something had shifted. The air felt thinner. The silence, sharper. That note wasn't just a thank you. It was a breadcrumb. A signal. And suddenly, the thought that had started as a joke returned with eerie weight. Maybe he hadn't been some poor old man at all. Maybe he had been watching. Maybe he still was. Back at home, she sat beside her mother's bed, eyes distant as she stroked the frail woman's hand. Her mother slept peacefully, unaware of the swirl building in Lena's chest. Fear, curiosity, confusion. All tangled in one strange, handwritten sentence. Outside her apartment, headlights flickered once. Briefly, a car idled just long enough to be noticed, then pulled away. She turned toward the window. Too late. Nothing but streetlight and wind. Still, Lena felt it again. This wasn't over. It was only beginning. Lena nearly ignored the call. It came just after her morning shift, an unfamiliar number flashing on her screen, the kind that usually belonged to spam calls or scams. But something compelled her to answer. Miss Lena Hayes? The voice was crisp, professional, with a tone too precise to be casual. Yes, she replied cautiously, wiping her hands on her apron. This is Rosalind and Mark's Law. Our client has requested your presence at his private residence for a matter of personal importance. Transportation has been arranged. Details will follow shortly. She blinked. I'm sorry, what? The line went dead. 15 minutes later, a sleek black sedan pulled up outside the cafe. The driver stepped out, dressed in a tailored suit, and opened the door without saying a word. The air felt too still, too deliberate. Her coworkers stood at the windows, watching in awe, mouths half open. Lena hesitated. But then she remembered the note under her windshield. You reminded me that kindness still exists. So she climbed into the car. The drive felt endless. Trees blurred past the tinted windows as the city vanished behind her. When they arrived, she thought they had taken a wrong turn. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. Wrought iron gates twice her height opened slowly as the car approached. Beyond them lay a winding stone path, leading up to a mansion that looked more like a palace. Cream-colored stone, ivy-covered columns, towering windows. Every inch whispered money, history, secrets. The driver said nothing. Just parked, stepped out, and opened her door again, as if she'd done this 100 times before. Inside, the silence was even heavier. She was greeted not with words, but with a nod from a woman in black, who gestured her through a vast hallway lined with oil paintings and marble. Every face in the portraits wore the same expression, power held just beneath the surface. Watchful, cold. At the end of the hall, Lena was guided into a sitting room unlike anything she'd ever seen. Leather armchairs, gold-trimmed furniture, and a massive fireplace that crackled softly despite the warmth of the room. She moved slowly, taking it in, every polished surface, every framed newspaper headline on the wall. Whitmore Group stocks soar again. Tech billionaire disappears from public eye. Daniel Whitmore, the ghost CEO. Then her eyes landed on the table in the center of the room. A single coffee cup, faded, chipped slightly on the rim. Her breath hitched. She knew that cup. Next to it, her photo. It wasn't a candid. It was a still from the cafe's security camera. She recognized the angle. Her face was half turned, mid-laugh, smiling at a man not shown in the frame. Her hands trembled as she reached out, but didn't touch it. Something about the way it sat, perfectly placed, felt, staged. Like an exhibit. A test. The silence deepened. Then the door behind her creaked. She froze. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. She turned. And there he was. The same frail frame. The same quiet eyes. But something was different now. He wasn't shivering. He wasn't disheveled. He wasn't pretending. He stood straighter. Eyes sharper. Mouth set not in a smile, but in intent. Lena's pulse pounded. All this time, who was he really? And why had he brought her here? The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Lena to stare at the man now standing before her. But it wasn't the old man she had come to know. The transformation was nothing short of shocking. The haggard, rain-soaked figure she had served at the café had disappeared. In his place stood a man who seemed to belong in a different world. A tailored suit that whispered wealth, a clean-shaven face that exuded confidence, and eyes that gleamed with quiet power. His presence commanded attention without asking for it. This man was no stranger. He was Daniel Whitmore. The billionaire tech mogul, the ghost of the industry world, the reclusive genius everyone assumed was perpetually traveling abroad or hiding from the public eye. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Her mind spun, trying to make sense of the man who stood before her, now the complete opposite of the frail figure she had once helped. Wow, what is this? Her voice cracked, her thoughts tumbling over each other in a mess of confusion and disbelief. He smiled faintly, an almost apologetic curve of his lips. You must have 1,000 questions. Lena didn't know where to begin. Who are you? She asked, though the answer was glaringly obvious now. She felt a flash of anger rise in her chest. Why the act? Why the disguise? You were watching me all along. Daniel didn't seem to mind the accusation in her voice. He merely crossed the room slowly, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the vast, quiet space. You could say I was testing you, he said, his voice calm but steady. Testing the kindness of a stranger, testing the sincerity of a simple gesture. Her pulse raced. So that's it? It was all just a test? The words stung more than she had expected, leaving a bitter taste in her mouth. She had thought the kindness she had offered to an old man, who had seemed so lonely and helpless, had been enough for him to remember, enough for him to appreciate. She had never imagined that it would be manipulated, turned into a game. All of this. Every single thing. Daniel nodded slowly. In a way, yes. But it was never about fooling you. It was about finding someone real. Someone who could see past the wealth, past the public image. Someone who wouldn't judge me. Someone who wouldn't want anything from me. Lena's heart beat faster, her confusion mingling with frustration. So you let me think you were just some old man. You used me, played me. No. Daniel's voice was firm now, but not harsh. I didn't use you. I just wanted to know if I could find someone who would treat me the same, regardless of my wealth. You've no idea how hard it is, Lena. People only see the money. They see the billionaire and treat you like a prize to be won, or an opportunity to be taken. But no one ever sees the person. Not really. Lena took a step back, feeling the weight of his words settle in the room like dust. Her mind whirled. So this whole thing was just to see if I'd be kind to you? You had cameras watching me the whole time, didn't you? His eyes softened, and he nodded. I had to be sure. You were kind, genuine, without asking for anything in return. You never treated me like I was anything other than just a person who needed help. She shook her head, feeling her pulse quicken with a mixture of anger and disbelief. And you thought the best way to find that person was to what? Play some sort of sick game? Daniel met her gaze with steady eyes. It wasn't a game. It was a search. A search for authenticity. I've spent years in this world, Lena. I've built an empire, but I've lost myself in the process. I've been surrounded by people who only care about what I can give them and what they can get from me. I wanted to find someone who could see past all that. Lena felt the sting of betrayal deep in her chest. She had given him her kindness, her time. She had helped him without thinking twice. And now, she was faced with the painful reality that it had all been a setup. Every word he had said to her, every gesture of gratitude, had been rehearsed. Every second she had spent in his presence had been recorded, analyzed, judged. Why me? She demanded, her voice barely a whisper. Why did you choose me? He took a step forward, his gaze never leaving hers. Because you reminded me that kindness still exists. That not everyone is out to get something. You were the only person who saw me for who I am, not for the fortune that surrounds me. Lena's mind reeled, processing the weight of his words. Her anger began to subside, replaced by something deeper, something she didn't want to acknowledge. She had been fooled, yes. But there was something else. Something about the way he spoke, the vulnerability beneath the mask of confidence. He wasn't just a man of power. He was a man searching for something real. Something that had eluded him despite everything he had built. So, what now? Lena asked, her voice shaky. What happens after all of this? Daniel's expression softened further, almost as if he regretted the entire charade. What happens now is up to you. I found what I was looking for, Lena. But it's not a choice for me to make. It's yours. I won't force anything. But you should know, I've never met anyone like you. Lena stood frozen, feeling the weight of his words settle deep in her chest. The man she had helped, without expectation, without hesitation, wasn't the man she had imagined at all. The lines between truth and deception blurred in the room between them. Her breath caught as she finally spoke, her voice barely audible. And what if I don't want any part of this game? What if I don't care about all of this? Daniel didn't flinch. His gaze remained steady, unwavering. Then you walk away, Lena. No strings attached. But if you want to stay, you'll know that it's because you chose to. And I'll respect that choice. She stood there, torn between anger and something else she didn't want to admit. The man who had once been a stranger, now revealed, offered her a choice she hadn't expected. But the question remained. Would she walk away? Or would she take the risk? Lena's heart still raced from the shock of Daniel's revelation, the man who had once been a mystery now standing before her, offering her a future she had never imagined. The room seemed to close in around her, the weight of his words pressing down on her chest. Lena, Daniel's voice was calm, his gaze steady, but there was an undercurrent of something more, something deeper. I want to offer you a life-changing opportunity. A scholarship fund in your name. Full treatment for your mother's condition, no cost. And a position at my foundation. A real job. A future. She stood still, her mind struggling to process the enormity of his offer. The words were too much, too sudden. A scholarship, one that would secure her future, ease the burden of nursing school. Medical treatment for her mother, the woman she had been tirelessly caring for, who was slipping away from her. And a career at Daniel Whitmore's foundation. A chance to change her life forever. But there was more. Daniel wasn't just offering charity. His next words made Lena's stomach twist. I'm not just offering you help, Lena. I'm offering you something more. I want to know if there's a future between us. If you see something in me, something real, not the man everyone else sees. I've been searching for something like that, someone like you. His eyes never left hers, and in that moment, Lena felt like she was drowning in his gaze. Her mind spun, torn between the overwhelming gratitude she felt and the nagging sense of doubt creeping in. Was this real? Was this truly an offer of love, or was it just another test? A continuation of the game she had been part of all along? Her breath caught in her throat. You can't be serious. Daniel's expression softened, as if he were waiting for her to come to terms with what he was offering. I am. This isn't just about helping you. It's about a connection. It's about the possibility of something more. I've never met anyone who treated me like I was just another person. And I think there's something between us, Lena. Something I can't ignore. Lena's chest tightened. It was too much. The stakes were higher than she could have ever imagined. She had been struggling with life's pressures, her mother's illness, the weight of her responsibilities, the constant struggle to keep her head above water, and now this offer, this overwhelming choice, had fallen into her lap. It was a dream come true, in a way, but it also felt like a trap. How could she trust him? How could she trust this offer when it felt like everything had been orchestrated from the very beginning? Her pride fought against the wave of gratitude swelling inside her. She had never asked for his help, never expected anything in return for her kindness. But now, here she was, facing an offer that could change everything. Her mother's treatment, her future, all within her grasp, and all because of one act of kindness that had started this entire whirlwind. But as she stared at him, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just charity. She had been part of his game from the start, and now she was caught in the crossfire of his search for something genuine. She wasn't sure if he was offering her a chance at love, or if she was just another piece in his puzzle. Lena's mind raced. She couldn't think clearly, couldn't process all of it at once. She needed space. She needed time. I can't do this, she said, her voice tight with emotion. I need to think. I can't make a decision like this, not now. It's too much. She turned sharply, storming out of the room before he could respond. The door clicked shut behind her with a resounding finality, and Lena found herself outside, the cold night air biting at her skin, the weight of her emotions pulling her in every direction. She didn't stop walking until she reached her apartment. It was a short walk, but it felt like miles. Her head was spinning. Her heart was racing. How could she choose between everything she had always dreamed of and the feeling that this offer wasn't as pure as it seemed? At home, she found her mother sitting in the living room, her frail form slumped in an armchair, the dim light casting shadows over her pale face. Lena sat down beside her, her mind still reeling from the conversation with Daniel. She told her mother everything. The offer, the weight of the decision, the impossible choice she faced. Her mother listened quietly, her eyes tired but kind. When Lena finished, her mother gave a soft smile, a smile that, despite everything, still held warmth. The real test, sweetheart, her mother whispered, her voice gentle but filled with wisdom, is what you want. Not what he wants. Not what the world wants. What do you want? Lena closed her eyes, the answer still eluding her. What did she want? A life of security, of stability, of taking care of her mother? Or a chance at something more, something with him? As the rain tapped softly against the window, Lena sat in silence, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. The choice was hers, and it was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. The clock was ticking. The soft patter of rain against the window was a familiar sound as Lena stepped back into the café. It had been a long, uncertain road to get here. Her thoughts were still tangled, swirling with the choices she had made, the future she was still unsure of. But today was different. Today, she had come to the place where it all began. The café was warm and inviting, as if it had never changed, yet everything about her had. She could still see the faces of the regulars, the hum of conversations, the clink of cups and saucers. It all felt so ordinary, yet nothing was ordinary anymore. As her eyes scanned the room, she found him. Daniel. Not in the suit, not in the guise of the mysterious billionaire, but as himself, a man who had been testing her, watching her, and now, perhaps, ready to reveal the truth of it all. He was sitting by the window, his familiar black coffee cup in hand, a calm expression on his face. It was him, yet it wasn't. The man who had once been cloaked in secrecy now seemed like someone she could finally understand. There were no layers between them anymore, no veils to hide behind. Only the quiet space where they could meet as equals. Lena walked toward him slowly, her mind still swirling with everything that had come before. She wasn't sure what she was going to say, what kind of answer she was going to give him. The weight of her decision still pressed on her chest, but she wasn't going to rush it. Not now. Not when the world felt both larger and smaller than it ever had. She sat down across from him, the chair creaking slightly under her weight. He smiled, a soft, knowing smile, and for the first time, it wasn't a smile of calculation. It was one of simplicity, of connection. The tension from their past meetings had melted away. They weren't two people on opposite sides of a game anymore. They were just two people, sitting together, with nothing more to prove. So, what will it be? Daniel asked, his voice steady, but his eyes still searching hers for some kind of answer. He didn't seem in a hurry. There was no pressure, no rush. Just two people who had come to the same place, in their own time. Lena paused, letting the moment hang in the air. Her hand reached for the coffee cup in front of her, a simple gesture that felt profound in its quietness. She hadn't come here with an answer. She hadn't come here to make a life-altering decision. She had come here to figure out what came next. With a soft smile, she looked across at him, and her words were simple, but they held so much more than they seemed. Let's start with coffee. Daniel's eyes twinkled, and for the first time, there was no game, no test, just a shared understanding between them. The past wasn't something to be undone. It was something they had both moved beyond. He nodded, his expression shifting from one of expectation to one of contentment. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping their coffee. It was just a drink, just two people sitting together. But somehow, it felt like so much more. The walls between them had come down, not because of grand gestures or overwhelming promises, but because they had allowed themselves to be real with each other. Lena wasn't sure where this would lead, but she didn't feel the need to have all the answers right away. The world was full of possibilities, and maybe, just maybe, this was where her journey had been meant to start. Not with a question about wealth, not with an offer of a life she hadn't chosen, but with something simpler. A quiet connection, a beginning. They talked, they laughed, they shared stories about their lives, their fears, their dreams. It was nothing extraordinary, and yet, it felt like everything. As the conversation flowed, the camera slowly pulled back, capturing them in their little corner of the world. There were no grand declarations, no promises of forever. Only two people sitting across from one another, enjoying each other's company, the way two people who had found something real would. The tip jar, sitting near the register, caught Lena's eye. The words on the jar were simple, but they seemed to speak directly to her. Kindness is never wasted. In that moment, Lena knew that whatever came next, whatever the future held, she had made the right choice. It wasn't about the grand gestures or the high stakes. It was about the moments, the small ones, the ones that brought people together when they least expected it. And as they sat there, together, in the quiet cafe, it was clear that sometimes, the most powerful connections start with the simplest of acts. The camera continued to pull back, fading to black, leaving the two of them there, in the warm, soft light of a cafe that would always be a reminder of how kindness had changed everything. If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you are watching from, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think of Lena's journey and the surprising revelation about Daniel Whitmore? Was his test worth it, or did it go too far? Share your opinions on their connection and how kindness truly shapes lives. Don't forget to tell us which moment stood out the most for you. Was it the coffee, the invitation, or the final choice? We'd love to hear from you.